We're the All People's Health Collective, where organizers, advocates, and everyday people come together to demand care, housing, and freedom for all. APHC is fighting for care without control, housing without conditions, and dignity for every person.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the APHC podcast. This is Susan, and I'm joined today by Melody Parker, who's with the Fund for Guaranteed Income. So today we have a really exciting episode. We're going to be talking about guaranteed income programs, some of Melody's experiences working on this and putting it into practice, and the Our Money Initiative, which the All People's Health Collective will be rolling out very soon, which will be seeking to get Californians money to live. Awesome. So just to get us started, Melody, can you just introduce yourself, and share a little bit about what brings you into this work?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Susan. Really happy to be here. So I am Melody. I am the executive coordinator at the Fund for Guaranteed Income, which is a national leader in direct cash transfer programs. We have dispersed over $25 million over the past 6 years. And then we also build technology to reimagine the social safety net and also conduct research. And then prior to joining F4GI, I worked as the program manager at the ACLU of Louisiana. I was managing a pretty small guaranteed income pilot um, that was, it was called Truth and Reconciliation pilot or project. And the program was actually reparations. It had a reparations framing. So the funders of the pilot, they were siblings who came from, they were descendants of enslavers. And part of their philanthropy goals was to actually address the legacy of slavery. And so the participants of the Truth and Reconciliation program, they had all experienced violence at the hands of state police. So they experienced state violence. And it was a really incredible opportunity being able to work for the ACLU of Louisiana and working with both the program participants and also the donors. I had actually mentioned to Susan at another point, but one of the most powerful experiences that I've had was actually being in the room with both the donors and the participants. The program for the participants was incredibly healing, and then for the donors, seeing them kind of take accountability of their family history was really empowering and really powerful.
It's such a cool project. And I'm wondering if there are kind of key takeaways also from that project, that you want to share, or any also like specific anecdotes that come to mind, or anything that like anyone shared in about their experience actually being part of this pilot and receiving the funds.
Yeah, absolutely. So the program was only a year long. Participants received $1,000 every month, and then at the end of the program, they actually got a lump sum of $5,000. And um, the the impacts of the program were pretty solid. So the Truth and Reconciliation program had a lot of really great outcomes, including better financial security. Participants reported feeling less physical, emotional, mental stress, which was really great. There were better uh, rates of food security. Um, Better rates of transportation access. Um, and then one of the really powerful stories that came out of the program was a participant named Hope She grew up in a in public housing, and she became an activist for her community. And it was really, really powerful. And she found a lot of joy doing that. And then after some, trouble with Louisiana police, she was really discouraged for a while from really stepping up and helping her community. After she started receiving payments, she began a community garden, and that story is just so amazing. She, reported having, kids, teenagers in the community coming to her for nutritious food, for tips on how to start their own gardens. Just a really, really beautiful moment of human connection, and it really makes you see the power of cash and guaranteed income. It's more than just, economic freedom. It's a chance to uh, really contribute more.
That's really beautiful. And I feel like that resonates a lot, even with my experience in like organizing spaces where folks like, I feel like the fact that organizing or, community-based work doesn't pay, can be really limiting for people who are like working all the time to survive, right? And so it sort of can like limit the people who can be involved to people who have enough discretionary income or discretionary time to be able to do that. Um, but it's just really cool to hear how like, yeah, the story of this person who was able to get this support and then kind of pour it back into not only like her own like quality of life in her family, but like also her community and her neighbors and yeah, create this garden in this space. Awesome. So Melody, what has F for GI worked on in the last years or as long as it's been working in this space?
Yeah, so I can actually start by talking about the ACLU of Louisiana program, because F4GI was our disbursement partner. So, that was really great. But for the ACLU pilot, one of the biggest things that we ended up doing was um, actually doing a wide range of support services beyond just giving cash. So we did a couple different focus groups with the participants before the programming started, and we asked them, what do you need? And some of the things that emerged were mental health counseling, expungements, financial literacy, or like, financial coaching. Um, and it was really, really powerful to be able to connect these individuals to different resources. Um, and the impact of that was pretty significant. So almost all of the participants elected to get um, free expungements completely paid for by the donors. Um, that was really, really amazing. I also want to touch on a couple other programs that F4GI has worked on. One of them, the Community Love Fund, that program is now over, but it sent money directly to both current and formerly incarcerated women. And that is honestly something pretty novel, being able to get money directly to incarcerated people is pretty difficult. And F4GI was able to do that. Like really, really amazing work. And then some of the more recent work that F4GI was involved in last year, it was actually two different crisis response programs. So one was for the LA firefighters. They were not being paid sufficiently at all for the really, really difficult, fatal, like really, really tough work that they were doing, fighting the fires in Altadena.
And
Um,
just to clarify, these are the incarcerated firefighters.
yeah, yes,
Yeah.
incarcerated firefighters. Yeah, important distinction. Um, and then bigger lessons learned from, FRGI's work has been the importance of community-centered design. So, a lot of times, especially when we're talking about the existing social safety net and programs, when we're talking about kind of paternalistic programs that are dictating kind of what uh, participants should be doing. Um, that is completely different than how F4GI operates. That goes all the way down to how participants interact with F4GI's like programs and platforms. We ensure that everything is really light touch, everything is available on mobile phone, all of that. Even the way that we disperse cash, we don't require you to have a bank account. So we support unbanked individuals. We have 4 different payment methods. It's Venmo, PayPal, uh, ACH payment, and then just like a prepaid debit card. And so for the LA ICE raids, uh, something that was really important was like protecting these vulnerable individuals. So that like banking security and that freedom to choose the payment option, that was really important, and that was completely decided by the community.
To ground us and listeners who might not be familiar with the term guaranteed income or what the model is, do you mind just kind of giving a background and overview of what guaranteed income is and what is the power of guaranteed income? And then what has F4GI and you personally like learned over the past years working in this space?
Yeah, so first to define guaranteed income, it is a form of direct cash transfers. One of the biggest tenets of guaranteed income is that it is unconditional, no strings attached. That means no work requirements. Um, uh, there are no restrictions over how the money is spent. Yeah, so to give a brief history of guaranteed income in, the modern US context, it really became popular during the civil rights movement in the 60s. Famously, MLK Jr., he talked about the power of a guaranteed income. And then also the Black Panthers in their 10 points, they mentioned that guaranteed income is a right. So there were really strong advocates for guaranteed income in the 60s. And then I also want to mention that guaranteed income historically has not been a partisan thing. So in like the later 60s and the 70s, like Nixon era, um, Milton Friedman and the negative income tax. Those were, conservatives who were advocating for the same kind of direct cash transfer policies. Um, and then moving from there, the Alaska Permanent Fund uh, began in 1976, and that was the first statewide guaranteed income program initiative in the United States, and it's currently the only state that has a permanent guaranteed income. And so that funding actually comes from Alaska's natural oil uh, reserves. So that money goes back to Alaskans every year. And then 2017, really important was the Stockton Seed Project by California Mayor Michael Tubbs. Um, and so that demonstration really, really elevated guaranteed income in like the public zeitgeist, I guess. And then 2020, a lot of guaranteed income programs started popping up. Mayors for Guaranteed Income was founded in 2020. F4GI was founded in 2020. And then since then, there have been over 160 different localized guaranteed income pilots in the US.
And when you say localized guaranteed income pilots, so most of these projects have been kind of term limited or, like a year or 2 years. And are they mostly like municipal or have there also been other statewide initiatives?
Not statewide, but yes, at the county level, city level, there have definitely been several guaranteed income pilots.
Cool. And I'm wondering if there are sort of like broad trends and findings from those pilots, like how have recipients benefited? How have the sort of local economies like experienced those pilot programs? Um, are there kind of just patterns that you see? I'm sure some of it is like dependent on the specific place and the parameters of that project. But overall, what has the effect of guaranteed income been in communities where it's been tried?
Time and time again, these pilots have proven that when you give people who need cash, they do well with the cash. And we actually don't need to tell them what to do with their cash. We don't need to surveil them. We don't need to constantly have them prove that they are poor and are deserving of support, which is honestly very much how our existing social safety net operates. It's very paternalistic. Um, you constantly have to prove yourself. Lots of means testing, all of that. So different pilots, they have demonstrated really, really good impacts across the board in terms of participant health and well-being, mental, physical health, um, improvements there, increased food security. Uh, there have been several pilots that target homelessness specifically, and there have been improvements there. Um, yeah, time and time again, the research shows that cash works and giving people the dignity and autonomy to spend it as they uh, best need. That's uh, yeah.
Absolutely. I know one of the concerns that's really commonly voiced whenever you bring up UBI or guaranteed income, is people say like, well, what's going to happen to inflation? Like if I'm getting $40,000 a year, say, which would be a lot of money, but say like I'm getting $40,000 a year, my rent's just going to go up $40,000 a year. Um, and can you just speak a little bit about what the research shows on the impact of UBI or guaranteed income on inflation?
Yeah, so I actually want to approach this question first by talking about what causes inflation. So primarily there are two ways that inflation will occur. The first one is increasing the money supply, just straight printing new money. I want to say there are no guaranteed income programs or UBI initiatives that are advocating for this because that would cause inflation. Um, but yeah, it's increasing the money supply or increasing the velocity of money, the rate at which the cash is actually spent. So when we're talking about guaranteed income and UBI, Universal Basic Income, first I want to kind of pause and differentiate the two. Um, the overall like ethos philosophy is very much the same of, unconditional, no strings attached um, disbursements. However, guaranteed income is targeted. Most often it's targeting low income folks, but there are programs that, target all different types of demographics. But a universal basic income is same amount of cash for every citizen. So generally, UBI has more inflationary effects than GI, guaranteed income. And that's mostly because guaranteed income, they are, like I mentioned before, very localized pilots. The scale just is not big enough. And then the other part of that is uh, almost every guaranteed income program that I know of uses cash redistribution. So this money is not new money, you know. And then when we're talking about UBI and inflation, what it comes down to is the actual funding mechanism. So when you're injecting cash into an economy, that will cause inflation. If a universal basic income is being offset by taxes, um, not inflationary. It's You can think of it as any other government spending. There needs to be an offset.
What do you mean by an offset?
So when there is increased money supply, that means more money is chasing the same amount of goods, right? Like there is not an equivalent addition of goods.
Okay, so here at All People's Health Collective, we've been working on a really exciting initiative that we're calling the Our Money Initiative, which, just as a really general overview, the Our Money Initiative is an effort to provide unconditional continuous cash payments to Californians by putting the issue in front of California voters in November 2028 through the ballot process. And if that passes, then California residents would receive permanent regular cash payments from the state government. And the goal would be to reach as many individual California adult residents as possible by creating really broad eligibility requirements. Um, and Melody, I'm curious if you can just talk about how the Our Money initiative kind of would be similar or different from other guaranteed income initiatives that have been tried in the past, and kind of your thinking and F4GI's thinking about policy design as we're working on this project.
Yeah, so first, there isn't really anything too comparable. We can talk about the Alaska Permanent Fund, but there are some really key differences, particularly in the funding. So, as I mentioned before, Alaska has these natural this natural oil production that generates revenue that is then dispersed back to the Alaskan residents. The California initiative that we're talking about would be enormous. California is a huge state. We're talking about 39 million people. Very, very expensive program. So there isn't a lot to really look at in terms of, comparable programs. But as I mentioned, the 160 plus pilots that we've seen, we've learned a lot from. Um, okay, so APHC, I've been in some of the initial conversations around policy design. And so from the very start, we're thinking about, key decisions around eligibility requirements. And so this is like who even gets the money, how much money, these very, very basic questions. And although APHC's goal is to involve as many Californians as possible, to be realistic, this money has to come from somewhere. So it also has to be feasible. So from there, we have to start narrowing down parameters. So that means considering things like age, residency requirements, citizenship status, income levels. And so then from there, we can start kind of narrowing down from every single Californian to something that is more feasible. The next part of the discussion was about the actual payment design. So one of the questions that came up was, should the richest Californian receive the same amount as the poorest Californian? And so that kind of plays into the idea of, like I said, payment design, how much should each person get? That led us to explore this model called the phase reduction model for income eligibility. So this approach, um, it is universal in theory, but targeted in practice. The idea is that the poorest Californians get the most support. And then that amount tapers off as income levels rise. So when we were modeling this, we were playing around with different payment amounts and then different like phase out starts and break even points. And so that's basically the point where, at the phase out, anyone below that phase out amount, they would get the full amount. Anyone above the break even point gets nothing. And then there's, a full ratio in between where you're getting a proportionate amount to what your income is. And then from there, with these different types of models, you can start to explore how many Californians could be eligible under these different scenarios. And then you can actually start assigning dollar amounts to how much this would cost the state of California for a year. And then that kind of leads to bigger discussions about, funding mechanisms. How are we going to fund this? Where's the money coming from? That is not decided. And there is a lot more to discuss in terms of that. The other piece that we are actively working on is benefits protections. One of the biggest issues when it comes to guaranteed income and universal basic income is this thing called the benefits cliff, where if you are currently receiving money from the social safety net, welfare, if you receive, SNAP or SSI, and all of a sudden you're getting this guaranteed income payment and you are kicked off of SNAP or SSI or whatever the program is, and then all of a sudden you're actually receiving less because you got that additional payment. So we absolutely want to prevent that. We want everyone to benefit from the payments. Also, a big point about this Our Money initiative is it's not meant to actually replace the existing social safety net. The idea is like building upon what people are already receiving.
Okay. Yeah, so what does protecting benefits mean and how do you go about that?
Yeah, so there are a couple different mitigation strategies that people in the space, in the guaranteed income space, use. One of the biggest thing is actually structuring the guaranteed income payment as a gift, according to the IRS definition. The other main way is uh, actually considering the guaranteed income payments as non-earned income as opposed to earned income. And so this way, the payments aren't taxed as income. And um, people in the space usually seek out exemptions or waivers from state agencies so that the payments are not considered as income. There is a caveat, though, of course. Some programs do consider all types of income, unearned or earned, as counting towards, you know. So, for example, that's why SSI is so difficult to protect. It actually results in a dollar for dollar reduction. And although there is like a very narrow exemption, most of the time, what needs to happen is participants will actually just be educated that this is a possibility if they're not able to actually protect SSI in particular. So another mitigation strategy is having a benefits consultant actually educate the participants on any possible impacts to their benefits. Uh, the another strategy would be adjusting eligibility. So straight up saying, if you have SSI, you're not eligible. Um, or changing the program design. So that would be like changing the payment amounts, the payment duration. Sometimes state agencies um, don't want to see like if it's a continuous predictable payment, which is what guaranteed income payments often are, they'll say like, like that will count as income. Um, it's all very dependent on the state. It can be very difficult to get these protections. There are several pilots and programs that develop hold harmless funds as another way to mitigate.
Can you say more about what the hold harmless funds are?
Yeah, so that would be if a program is expecting um, participants to be affected. Um, or their existing benefits to be affected, then they will actually have this hold harmless fund, which is an additional, pot of money that goes specifically to people who have been impacted to offset that impact so that they can still receive the full amount. And that is in the case where they weren't able to secure all of the benefits protections that they were seeking.
Got it. Okay. Um, I think just to be clear to the listeners, something that we're thinking really hard about and that is vital to us in designing our money is trying to make sure that these what we're thinking of as like continuous cash transfers, or we've also used the term like cost of living credits, would not be counted as income and so wouldn't be um, subjecting people to potentially falling off the benefits cliff in this same way. And so we're still thinking through different ideas and mechanisms to do that. But it's really interesting to hear about the sort of policies and like ideas that have been implemented in other programs. Um, and I just want to go back and take us like to a little more of a bird's eye view about why we're thinking about our money initiative in the first place, and why in California specifically. And so, Melody, you mentioned that California is like one of the biggest, it is the biggest state in the country. I believe California has, if it was a country, would be the fourth largest economy in the world. So obviously is an extremely like productive and wealthy state. But also it's a state that has the highest cost of living in the country, has a major ongoing housing crisis. Um, I looked at a March 2026 report from UC Berkeley that found that groceries are 11% more expensive, gas is 40% more expensive, and utilities are 61% more expensive than the national average. So just really staggering numbers. And as you mentioned, the goal here is not to replace other social benefits programs at all, but to provide this money to Californians who across the board are like struggling to live and struggling to meet their basic needs. Um, and yeah, I'm wondering if you can also share more from your perspective about, the big picture thinking about our money initiative, and like why in California specifically, and then kind of the background, um, like the situation, sorry, situate us maybe in the like crisis that this initiative would be responding to.
So big picture, one thing to think about is the long-term investment in corporations and people with immense wealth. Um, Via economic policy specifically, they favor corporate interests and they favor individuals of high net worth. And this has led to a really extreme concentration of wealth and ownership in certain places. And we see that specifically in California. We see that with the tech industry in Silicon Valley. Um, we see really intense wealth concentration. And then at the same time, like you said, California has a huge housing crisis. That I also want to offer a quote from sociologist James Ferguson from Give a Man a Fish. The quote is, "Consider the difference between receiving assistance and receiving an ownership share, what I have called the rightful share. What would change? Framed as a rightful share, a transfer might bring with it not just some modest material resources, but a new and powerful social identity, owner." So when we're thinking about our money and ownership and deservedness, we're talking about addressing a uh, a long history of disinvestment in certain communities and hyper investment in corporations and other entities. And that has led us to this crisis that we're seeing, this cost of living crisis.
Absolutely. Yeah, that quote, that was my first time hearing that quote, but I feel like the framing is so important for how we're thinking about our money initiative as not just kind of this like disembodied like social program, but a rightful kind of like giving people what they deserve to live and also what they deserve because the money that these corporations are making and the money that the state has like comes from taxpayers in the first place, comes from people who are, having their work or their data or like whatever else extracted from them in the first place. And so it's just giving back just a little bit of what people have created and what they deserve.
It's what's owed, really.
Exactly. Um, okay, awesome. Well, I'm so glad that you're on this team, and that we get to pick your brain and learn from your expertise and F4GI's expertise. Um, and beyond the Our Money initiative, what is F4GI working on these days?
Yeah, so we this year we actually launched a new program. It's called the AI Dividend, and it directly addresses workers who have been displaced by AI. So this program it offers direct cash, reskilling support, and then like a community environment for these workers who have completely, you know, uh, like their experiences in the workforce have completely changed due to AI and automation, these like technological advances that are pushing actual humans out of work. And so the idea behind the AI dividend is pretty similar to our money. It's, a rightful share. Um, this is a crisis.
Also, just out of curiosity, I'm wondering, who are the workers who are receiving these dividends? Like, what industries are they coming from? Is it mostly people who are coming from the tech industry or a broader, um, kind of set of people who are all having their jobs and livelihoods displaced by AI?
Yeah, so our first cohort, our initial cohort is all tech workers. And the reason for that is because tech workers have been some of the most vulnerable workers to AI displacement in really the past few years. So we have software engineers, data analysts, uh, we also are seeing both, fresh college grads who there's just like no vacancy in their field. And then we also see really experienced tech workers who were eliminated from their senior positions, sometimes after even training the AI that then replaced them. So it really is a range. We've been receiving applications from all different types of workers, not just people in tech, because it really is uh, a super widespread issue that is touching almost every industry.
That's super interesting. And I feel like that specific model really shows how like guaranteed income or UBI is different from traditional social safety net policies or programs that are addressing poverty, in that it's like we're in a moment where everyone is precarious, like even these workers in the tech industry who often are making like a lot of money, but then you can lose your job in an instant and still lose everything, right? And so I feel like UBI is a really powerful response to that, and that it can help ensure that survival isn't so tethered to your place of employment. And also thinking, of course, about people who aren't able to work or aren't permitted to work, or people who do like domestic work or care work, like work that's not, paid by an employer, but who deserve to have this fund as well to be able to support themselves and yeah, do whatever they want with.
Mhm. And so, listeners, if you or anyone you know has, experienced job loss, changes in your work, if you were laid off and you think it was due to AI, I would highly encourage you to check out the AI dividend program and even apply if you're interested in, receiving assistance potentially. You can visit the website at mydividend.ai.
Amazing. That is probably the best plug we've had on here in terms of actually getting people potentially like money to survive. Yeah, thanks so much, Melody. It's just really cool hearing all of the different like things that you've worked on and different programs that have existed. And in some ways, our money is a really radical idea and something that's never been tried. But we can still learn a lot from everything that has been done in the past. And yeah, just really appreciate having you on the podcast and talking to us today.